She sat there in her white dress, silent, as 200 people watched him laugh at her. The man who had just promised to love and cherish her forever was now making jokes about the wheelchair she sat in, and the room erupted in nervous, uncomfortable laughter. But Clara didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there with her hands folded in her lap, her face calm, her eyes fixed on something far beyond that moment. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that in exactly 48 hours, his entire world would collapse, and she wouldn't have to lift a finger. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Clara Mitchell. To most people in Riverside, she was just the quiet girl who lived with her grandmother on Maple Street. The girl who always smiled politely at the grocery store, who never caused trouble, who never stood out. But what they didn't see was that behind that gentle smile existed a fortune so vast it could reshape their entire town 3 times over. Clara owned properties they walked past every day. She held shares in companies where their relatives worked. Her family name was stitched into the very fabric of Riverside's economy, hidden beneath decades of intentional silence. So why would a woman with everything choose to live in a modest house? Why would she shop at discount stores and wear last season's clothes? And most importantly, why would she agree to marry a man like Daniel Foster, whose arrogance was matched only by his complete ignorance of who she really was? The accident happened when Clara was 9 years old. She was riding her bicycle down the hill near her grandmother's house, her laughter echoing through the quiet street. She didn't see the truck backing out of the driveway. The driver didn't see her. The impact threw her 12 feet. When she woke up in the hospital 3 days later, the doctors explained that her spine had been damaged. She would need surgeries, years of physical therapy, and even then, they couldn't promise she would walk normally again. Her parents made the decision quickly, too quickly. They sent her to live permanently with her grandmother, Eleanor Mitchell, in Riverside. They visited twice a year, and otherwise pretended their daughter's tragedy hadn't disrupted their comfortable lives in the city. But Eleanor Mitchell was different. Eleanor had built an empire quietly, carefully, without ever needing to announce it. She owned textile factories, real estate across 3 states, and investment portfolios that generated wealth even while she slept. And now, watching her granddaughter struggle through painful rehabilitation, Eleanor made a decision. She would teach Clara everything, not just about money, but about character, about patience, about the difference between power and force. During those long afternoons when Clara couldn't go to school, Eleanor would sit beside her and talk. She would say things like, "Money doesn't make you strong, Clara. Money just reveals what was already there." Or, "Real love doesn't see bank accounts. Real love sees souls." Clara absorbed these lessons like soil absorbs rain. Slowly, deeply, permanently. By the time she was 18, Clara could manage short distances without assistance, though her right leg never quite regained full strength. And by 20, when Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep, Clara inherited everything. Daniel Foster was 28 when he first noticed Clara at the community center. She was volunteering at a food drive, organizing donations with quiet efficiency. He saw her wheelchair folded in the corner, saw how she moved carefully, and something in his mind clicked. Not love, not admiration, opportunity. Daniel had grown up as the popular kid, the athlete, the guy everyone wanted to be around. But by his late 20s, he was working a middle management job he hated, living in an apartment he could barely afford, and watching his former classmates succeed while he stagnated. When he saw Clara, he saw someone who would be grateful, someone who, in his mind, had limited options, someone who would appreciate his attention, his able body, his willingness to be seen with her in public. He approached her that day with his most charming smile. Over the following weeks, he kept showing up. He texted her. He invited her to coffee. He listened when she talked, or at least appeared to. Clara had been lonely. Her grandmother had been gone for 3 years, and relationships felt different when you were the person others had to accommodate. Daniel made her feel normal. He never mentioned her disability directly at first. And slowly, carefully, Clara allowed herself to hope. Maybe someone could love her for exactly who she was. Maybe she didn't have to reveal everything about her background to test his affection. But there were signs. Small things Clara noticed but convinced herself didn't matter. The way Daniel would forget his wallet, assuming she would cover the bill. The way he talked about their future with vague assumptions that she would somehow provide. What he didn't know was that Clara had been observing him too. She watched how he treated service workers when he thought she wasn't paying attention. She heard him tell his friends on the phone, "Yeah, she's sweet, easy to deal with. And honestly, man, it's not like she has a lot of other options, you know?" He didn't know she was standing in the doorway when he said it. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. June 15th, 2024. The ceremony was held at St. Michael's Community Church. Daniel had invited everyone he knew, wanting the biggest audience possible. Clara wore a simple but elegant white dress. She had decided to use her wheelchair for the ceremony, knowing the long standing would be too painful. The church filled with 200 guests. The ceremony began normally enough. The pastor spoke about love and commitment. Then came the vows. Daniel went first. He had written his own. "Clara," he began, "you've taught me what true strength looks like. I mean, most people would have given up, right? But you kept going. You never let your situation define you. Some people shifted uncomfortably, and I promise to always be there for you, to be your legs when you need them." He smiled at his own cleverness. A few people chuckled nervously. "To carry you through life, literally and figuratively." More uncomfortable laughter. "I promise to take care of you, even though I know it won't always be easy, because that's what love is, right? Sacrifice." In that moment, Clara felt something click into place. The pastor invited Clara to share her vows. The room fell silent. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "Daniel, you've taught me something important over these past months. You've taught me the difference between loving someone and tolerating them, between choosing someone and settling for them." Daniel's smile faltered. "You've shown me that sometimes silence is the greatest gift you can give someone, because in silence, people reveal exactly who they are. I came here today knowing that after this ceremony, I'm going to make a choice. Not about my finances, but about my dignity." The church had gone completely quiet. "You see, I've spent my whole life being underestimated, being seen as less than, being treated as someone who should be grateful for basic human decency. I'm saying that I deserve better, that I've always deserved better, and that marrying you would be the biggest betrayal of myself I could commit." The gasps rippled through the church. Daniel's face went from confused to angry to panicked. "I'm saying that I won't be completing this ceremony." Clara pressed the controls on her wheelchair and turned toward the aisle. As she moved past the rows of shocked guests, she heard Daniel calling after her, heard his mother's sharp voice demanding someone do something, but Clara didn't stop. She rolled straight through those church doors into the bright June sunshine. She didn't look back, not even once. By the next morning, Riverside was talking about nothing else. Daniel spent the first 24 hours in denial, convinced she would come back. His mother called Clara repeatedly. None of the messages were returned. On the third day, a black sedan pulled up to Daniel's apartment complex. A woman in a gray suit emerged, carrying a leather briefcase. She knocked on Daniel's door at 9 in the morning. He answered in sweatpants, unshaven, exhausted. "Daniel Foster?" the woman asked. "My name is Patricia Hammond. I'm an attorney representing the Mitchell estate. May I come in?" Patricia sat down, opened her briefcase, and pulled out a thick folder. "I'm here to provide you with information regarding Clara Mitchell's financial status. Clara Mitchell is the sole heir to the Mitchell industrial fortune. She owns 73% of Mitchell Textiles, which employs over 3,000 people. She owns 17 commercial properties in Riverside alone, including the building where your office is located. She holds investment portfolios valued at approximately $83 million. The woman you attempted to marry is worth approximately $147 million. Daniel couldn't speak. Patricia continued without emotion. She wanted you to know that you had your chance, that you were given every opportunity to see her, really see her, and you chose instead to see a charity case. She wanted you to know exactly what you lost. Patricia stood to leave. For what it's worth, Mr. Foster, I've worked with Clara for 6 years. She's one of the most compassionate, intelligent, generous people I've ever met. She runs a foundation that provides medical equipment to disabled children. She funded the new wing of Riverside Hospital. She quietly pays college tuition for students every year. And she did all of this while you were dating her, and you never once asked about her life beyond what directly concerned you. The door closed softly. Daniel sat in his apartment for 4 hours without moving. Within a week, the full story had spread through Riverside. Daniel's life changed rapidly. His co-workers, who had tolerated his arrogance, now found him insufferable. He became a cautionary tale, the guy who had everything within reach and threw it away because his ego couldn't see past his own reflection. But the person who changed most was Clara herself. For years, she had hidden parts of her personality, always worried about being too much or not enough. After the wedding that wasn't, something shifted. She stopped hiding. She bought herself a custom wheelchair. She hired a personal trainer. She started using her influence to push for accessibility improvements throughout Riverside. By December, Clara opened the Mitchell Foundation Center, a facility that provided free physical therapy, counseling, and support groups for people with disabilities. On opening day, 200 people attended. A young woman named Rachel, who had been paralyzed in a car accident, approached Clara afterward. "I just wanted to thank you," Rachel said, "for showing me that I don't have to shrink myself to make people comfortable, that I don't have to accept less because someone tells me I should be grateful for anything. Watching you walk away, well, roll away, it made me realize I could too." 2 months later, Rachel ended her toxic relationship, enrolled in college, and started volunteering at the Foundation Center. As for Daniel, he moved out of Riverside, unable to bear the constant reminders. For months, he blamed Clara, but late at night, he would remember things. The way Clara had always been kind, the way she had never complained, the phone call she had overheard, his vows, how clever he had thought he was being. And slowly, painfully, Daniel began to understand. The problem wasn't that Clara had been rich. The problem was that he had believed someone in a wheelchair was less than him, less deserving, less worth respecting. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Clara was invited to speak at a national conference on disability rights. She talked about learning to advocate for herself, about the difference between accepting help and accepting disrespect. "I don't want anyone to think this story is about money," Clara said, "because it's not. It's about worth, about knowing your worth and refusing to negotiate it down to make someone else comfortable. I could have been broke, and leaving that church would still have been the right choice. Because I deserved better. Because everyone deserves better than someone who sees them as a project or a charity case." That night, sitting in her living room, Clara thought about everything that had happened. And she realized something important. She didn't hate Daniel. She had moved on so completely that he existed in her memory only as a lesson learned, a boundary established, a moment when she had chosen herself. That, more than anything, was the real victory. So let me ask you something. If you were in Clara's position, sitting in that church, hearing those vows, would you have had the strength to leave? Have you ever stayed in a situation because walking away felt harder than enduring? And how did you feel watching Clara's story unfold? Did you want her to expose Daniel publicly, or do you think her quiet dignity was more powerful? Think about the people in your life who move through the world differently. Have you ever caught yourself making assumptions about their capabilities or their worth? Clara's story isn't really about a rich woman and an arrogant man. It's about the assumptions we make, the value we assign, and the courage it takes to say, "I deserve better" when the world tells you to be grateful for less. So where are you watching from? What part of Clara's story hit you hardest? Let us know in the comments. And if this story made you think, made you feel something, then subscribe. Because there are more stories like this that remind us that strength comes in forms we don't always recognize, and that every person deserves to be seen, truly seen, for who they are.